What if the most powerful man on earth, a man with 10,000 soldiers behind him, a man who had every right to destroy those who tortured him, starved him, buried his companions alive, threw the intestines of camels on his back while he prayed? What if that man, at the moment of his greatest victory, looked at his enemies and said, "You are free, I forgive you all"? What if I told you that this was not a scene from a movie? This was not a fictional story written by a novelist. This was a real moment in real history. And the man who said those words was the same man who as a child lost his father before he was born, lost his mother at 6 years old, was an orphan who had nothing, and yet became the most influential human being who ever walked on the face of this earth. What if understanding his story, truly understanding it, not just reading it but feeling it, what if that understanding could completely transform the way you see your own pain, your own losses, your own struggles? Stay with me, because what you are about to hear is not just history, it is the cure for every broken heart. What if I told you that the man who changed the entire world, the man whose name is mentioned more times every single day across this globe than any other name in human history? What if I told you that this man began his life with nothing, no father, no mother, no wealth, no power, and yet centuries after he left this world, billions of people still send their love and blessings upon him every single day. His name causes hearts to soften. His name causes tears to fall from the eyes of people who never even met him. His name is Muhammad, the messenger of Allah. Peace and blessings be upon him. And today we are going to talk about his story. Now I want you to understand something before we go any further. This is not a lecture for scholars only. This is not a speech for the already religious only. This is for every single human being who has ever felt pain. For every person who has ever felt like they were carrying too much. For every soul that has ever wondered whether their suffering has any meaning. Because the life of the Prophet is the most complete answer to every one of those questions. He was born in the year 570 CE in the city of Mecca in the Arabian Peninsula. And the very first thing you need to know about his birth is that it was wrapped in loss. His father Abdullah had passed away before he even opened his eyes. Think about that for a moment. The greatest human being Allah ever created came into this world without a father. He never heard his father's voice. He never felt his father's hand on his head. He never had the experience that most of us take for granted of a father saying, "I am proud of you." And yet not once in his entire life did the Prophet's son complain about this. Not once did he use his pain as an excuse to give up. He took every loss, every absence, every wound, and he let Allah fill those spaces. That is the first lesson from his life. When people leave, when things are taken from you, when the door closes, Allah is still there. Allah was always there, and He never left. He was nursed by a woman named Halima as-Sa'diyah, and the moment she took this blessed child into her care, her life changed dramatically. Her animals became more productive. Her household was blessed with abundance. This baby, who had no father, who had no wealth, who came from nothing materially, carried so much divine blessing in his very existence that everyone around him could feel it. This is the barakah of Allah. This is how Allah shows the world that value is never determined by material circumstances. Value is determined by what is inside a person. And what was inside this child was something the world had never seen before and will never see again. When he was 6 years old, his mother Amina passed away. 6 years old. Can you imagine? A child who already had no father, now has no mother. He is 6 years old, standing at the grave of his mother in a place called Al-Abwa between Mecca and Madinah. 6 years old. And this moment, this devastating moment, was not a punishment from Allah. It was preparation. Every single loss in his life was Allah preparing him to carry the weight of guidance for all of humanity. Because you cannot comfort people in their grief if you have never grieved. You cannot speak to the broken if your own heart has never been broken. And so Allah gave His most beloved Prophet the experience of loss, not to destroy him, but to make him capable of healing others. He then went to live with his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, a respected and beloved figure in Mecca. And for 2 years, this grandfather gave the orphan child his love, his attention, his care. People said they used to see Abdul Muttalib treating this child with such extraordinary affection, allowing him to sit in his special seat, giving him priority over his own sons. And then when Muhammad was 8 years old, Abdul Muttalib also passed away. 3 major losses before the age of 8, father, mother, grandfather. And now he goes to live with his uncle Abu Talib. And despite Abu Talib being a man of limited financial means, he loved his nephew deeply and protected him fiercely. Now as Muhammad grew older, something remarkable happened. In a society that was drowning in corruption, in idol worship, in the burying of daughters alive, in the oppression of the poor and the weak, in a society where the powerful crushed the powerless without any guilt, this one man stood out. His neighbors noticed it, traders noticed it, strangers noticed it, even his enemies noticed it. They called him Al-Amin, the trustworthy, the honest one, the reliable one. In a society full of liars, cheaters and manipulators, this man could not tell a lie even if he tried. His tongue was incapable of deception because his heart was incapable of it. And this is something that shocks people when they study his life. His enemies, the very same people who would later try to kill him, the very same people who tortured his companions, they still admitted, even in their hatred, that Muhammad never lied. They disagreed with his message, but they could never dispute his character. That is how powerful his integrity was. At the age of 25, he married the most remarkable woman, Khadija bint Khuwaylid Ra'ay, a successful businesswoman, a woman of wisdom, strength and extraordinary faith. She was 15 years older than him. And in a society obsessed with age and social hierarchies, this marriage was a statement. She had proposed to him and he accepted because he saw her character and she saw his. Their marriage was built on mutual respect, deep love, intellectual partnership and spiritual alignment. She was not just his wife. She was his first supporter. She was his comfort. She was his anchor. And when the greatest moment of his life arrived, she was the one standing right next to him. At the age of 40, in the Cave of Hira, on the mountain called Jabal an-Nur outside Mecca, something happened that would change the course of human history forever. The angel Jibreel ASA came to him and said one word, Ikra, read. And the Prophet trembled. He was shaking. He was overwhelmed. He ran home. He ran to Khadija Ra'a and said, cover me, cover me. And she wrapped him in a blanket and held him close. And then when he told her what had happened, when he told her about the angel, when he told her about the words, when he told her about the fear and the trembling, she looked at him and said something that every Muslim needs to memorize, something that every wife needs to understand, something that every human being needs to hear. She said, by Allah, Allah will never disgrace you. You keep good relations with your kith and kin. You speak the truth. You help the poor and the destitute. You serve your guests generously. And you help the deserving against the afflictions of others. She did not panic. She did not doubt him. She did not say, are you sure? She affirmed him. She reminded him of his own character at the moment he needed it most. And that single moment of a wife standing by her husband at his most vulnerable is one of the most beautiful moments in the entire history of Islam. The revelation began, and with it came the opposition, because truth always faces opposition. Light always disturbs the darkness. And when the Prophet began calling people to the worship of one God, to the abandonment of idol worship, to the treatment of women and slaves with dignity, to the rights of the poor, to the justice that the powerful had stolen from the weak, the powerful of Mecca became furious because his message threatened their control, his message threatened their income, his message threatened their status. And so they tried everything to stop him. They mocked him. They called him a madman, a poet, a sorcerer. They called him a liar. The same man they had called Al-Amin for 40 years, now they called a liar. And the Prophet felt the pain of this. He was human. He felt the rejection. He felt the loneliness. He felt the weight of people he loved, people he grew up with, turning their backs on him. And yet he continued, because when Allah gives you a mission, the opinion of the people becomes secondary. They went beyond words. They began physical torture. Bilal Ra, one of his companions, a former slave, was dragged out into the blazing desert heat of Mecca, laid flat on the scorching sand, and a massive rock was placed on his chest. And his torturers told him to denounce Muhammad and denounce Islam. And from beneath that rock, with a burning desert beneath him and a crushing weight above him, Bilal Raya looked up at the sky and said, Ahad, Ahad, one, meaning Allah is one, just one. And he refused to break. He refused to betray his faith. And the Prophet knew about what was happening to Bilal Raya and to others. And every time one of his companions was tortured, a piece of his heart broke. Because he was not a man without feelings. He was a man who felt everything deeply and still chose Allah over everything. The Quraysh tried to bribe him. They went to his uncle Abu Talib and said, tell your nephew that if he wants wealth, we will make him the wealthiest man in Mecca. If he wants power, we will make him our king. If he wants a wife, he can choose the most beautiful woman among us. Just tell him to stop. And Abu Talib relayed the message. And the Prophet looked at his uncle with complete calm and said words that still echo through history. Oh my uncle, if they were to place the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand, so that I abandon this matter, I would not abandon it until either Allah makes it prevail or I die in its cause. The sun in one hand, the moon in the other, and he would still choose Allah. That is not stubbornness, that is certainty. That is a man who has seen the truth so clearly that no amount of worldly compensation could make him exchange it. And then came the year of grief. In one single year, the Prophet lost two of the most important people in his life. His beloved wife Khadija passed away. The woman who had wrapped him in a blanket when he trembled. The woman who believed in him before anyone else. The woman who spent every penny of her wealth in the service of Islam. She was gone. And then shortly after, his uncle Abu Talib, his protector in Mecca, the man whose love had shielded him from the worst of the Quraysh's plans, he also passed away. In 1 year, the Prophet lost his emotional anchor and his political protection simultaneously. He was exposed, he was grieving, he was vulnerable. And what did Allah do? Allah took him on the Isra and Miraj, the night journey, through the heavens, to show him things no human eye had ever seen, to honor him at his lowest point, to remind him that while the world was removing its support, the creator of the world was elevating him to places no creation had ever reached. This is Allah's way. When the earth abandons you, the heavens open up. When people close their doors, Allah opens windows you did not even know existed. The Prophet ﷺ then tried to seek support outside Mecca. He went to Taif, a city not far away. And what they did to him there is one of the most heartbreaking moments in his entire story. They refused to listen to him, they mocked him, they sent their children and their slaves after him, throwing stones at him, pelting him until the blood ran down from his legs into his sandals. He was bleeding, he was exhausted, he was rejected, he sat down, broken physically, and he made a dua to Allah that makes hearts shatter every time it is read. He said, "Oh Allah, I complain to you of my weakness, my scarcity of resources, and the humiliation I have been subjected to by people. O most merciful of those who are merciful. O Lord of the weak and my Lord too, to whom have you entrusted me? To a distant person who receives me with hostility, or to an enemy to whom you have given control over my affair? As long as you are not angry with me, I do not care. Your favor is of a more expansive relief to me. I seek refuge in the light of your face, by which all darkness is dispelled." And then the angel of the mountains came to him and offered to crush the people of Taif between two mountains. And the Prophet, bleeding, exhausted, rejected, said no. He said perhaps their children will accept Islam. Bleeding and praying for those who made him bleed. That is not human. That is divine character given to a human being. And then came the Hijrah, the migration from Mecca to Madinah in 622 CE. The Quraysh had plotted to kill him. They surrounded his house at night, planning to stab him simultaneously so that no single tribe could be blamed. And Allah revealed to him what they were planning. And the Prophet walked out of that house in the darkness while his enemies surrounded it. And he recited verses from Surah Yasin and sprinkled dust and walked past all of them. And not one of them saw him. Because when Allah protects you, no enemy can touch you. No plan against you can succeed. No trap set for you can catch you. If Allah says go, you go. He traveled with his companion Abu Bakr through the desert, hiding in the cave of Thawr. And the Quraysh were searching for them. They came right to the entrance of the cave. And Abu Bakr whispered to the Prophet in fear, "If any of them looks down at his feet, he will see us." And the Prophet, at the entrance of a cave, with enemies at the door, said with complete calm and certainty, "O Abu Bakr, what do you think of two people when Allah is their third? What do you think of two when Allah is their third? That is tawakkul, that is reliance on Allah, not the reliance that sits at home and does nothing. The reliance that hides in a cave, takes every precaution, makes every effort, and then trusts Allah with the outcome completely." They arrived in Madinah, and the city erupted with joy. Children sang from the rooftops. The Ansar, the helpers of Madinah, competed with each other to host the Prophet in their homes. And the Prophet let his camel walk freely, saying, "Wherever she stops, that is where I will stay," because he did not want to offend anyone by choosing one host over another. Even in that moment of arrival, of celebration, of being welcomed after years of persecution, he was still thinking about the feelings of the people around him. That is who he was. In Medina, he built the first mosque with his own hands. He did not sit and supervise while others worked. He carried bricks himself. He dug alongside his companions. He sweat and labored in the same heat as the poorest among them. He established brotherhood between the Muhajirin, the migrants from Mecca, and the Ansar, the helpers of Medina, pairing each migrant with a local family. And the Ansar responded with generosity that still brings tears to the eyes. One Ansar companion said to his Muhajir brother, "I have 2 wives. Choose whichever one you want. I will divorce her so you can marry her." That is the brotherhood the Prophet built. That is the civilization he constructed from nothing in the middle of a desert. And then came the battles, the wars that the Quraysh forced upon him, because they could not accept that this man had succeeded. Badr, Uhud, Khandaq, each battle with its own lessons. At Uhud, when the archers disobeyed his command and left their positions because they thought the battle was won, the tide turned. Muslims were wounded. The Prophet himself was injured. A tooth was broken. His face bled. And yet in the chaos, when a rumor spread that he had been killed, he stood up and called out to his companions. And when they saw him alive, every fear in their hearts dissolved, because his presence was itself a comfort. His existence was itself a shield. And then came the greatest moment. 630 CE. The conquest of Mecca. 10 years after being driven out of his city. 10 years after being forced to leave his home, his memories, his birthplace. He returned with 10,000 companions. He had the power to burn the city. He had every moral and logical justification to seek revenge. The same people who had tortured Bilal Arayeh were there. The same people who had buried companions alive were there. The same people who had called him a liar, who had thrown garbage on him while he prayed, who had made the lives of his followers a living nightmare. They were all there, standing before him, waiting, terrified. And he looked at them and said, "What do you think I will do with you?" And then he said the words that echo through history. "Go, for you are free. Go, you are free. No punishment, no revenge, no settling of scores, just release, just forgiveness, just mercy." And those who had hated him most deeply became his most devoted followers, because they had never seen power used like this before. They had never seen a conqueror who conquered with love. This was the man, this was Muhammad, this was the orphan who became the leader of millions. The man who lost his mother at 6 and became the spiritual father of every Muslim until the day of judgment. The man who trembled in a cave at the sound of revelation and then carried that revelation to the entire world. The man who bled in Taif and prayed for the children of those who made him bleed. The man who walked out of his enemy's ambush unseen because Allah protected him. The man who forgave 10,000 people in a single moment because his heart was too full of mercy to hold any hatred. And he lived simply. He patched his own clothes. He milked his own goat. He swept his own house. He helped his wives with household chores. He sat on the floor with the poor. He visited the sick. He attended the funerals of his companions. He played with children. He smiled. He joked. He cried. He was fully human in every dimension and fully prophetic in every moment. His last sermon, delivered at Arafat, addressed all of humanity. "O people, your Lord is one. Your Father is one." There is no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, nor of a non-Arab over an Arab, nor of a red person over a white person, nor of a white person over a red person, except by piety and good action. In one address, he dismantled racism. He dismantled tribalism. He dismantled every system of human division that had plagued civilization since its beginning. And when he passed away in 632 CE, laying his head in the lap of Aisha Ra'iyeh, his companions were shattered. Umar ibn al-Khattab Ra'iyeh, one of the strongest men in Islamic history, could not believe it. He stood up with his sword and threatened anyone who said the Prophet had died. It was Abu Bakr Ra'iyeh who walked to the pulpit and said the words that are among the most famous in history. "Whoever worshipped Muhammad, let him know that Muhammad has died. But whoever worships Allah, let him know that Allah is alive and will never die." And when people heard Abu Bakr Ra'iyeh recite the verse about the Prophet's mortality, it was as if the verse had just been revealed. It hit them with its full weight for the first time. And they understood the message was bigger than the messenger. The guidance was eternal, even though the guide had departed. He left this world with less than he had when he entered it. At the time of his death, his armor was pledged as collateral for food for his family. The man who had once governed hundreds of thousands of people died in a state of material simplicity that most of us cannot imagine. And yet, he left behind something that no material inheritance could ever match. He left behind the Quran. He left behind his Sunnah. He left behind a complete way of life. He left behind an example so perfect, so comprehensive, so merciful, that 14 centuries later, people are still following it, still learning from it, still finding healing in it. And every single day, from the mountains of Indonesia to the streets of London, from the deserts of Africa to the cities of America, more than 1 billion people whisper his name in their prayers. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. O Allah, send your blessings upon Muhammad and upon the family of Muhammad. His name is on our tongues 5 times a day in prayer. His name is on our lips when we make du'as. His name fills our hearts when we need strength. He is gone from this world, but he is present in every believing heart, in every corner of this earth. That is not the legacy of an ordinary man. That is the impact of the final Prophet of Allah sent as a mercy to all the worlds. And so as we close the chapter of this extraordinary story, I want you to walk away with this. Every loss in your life has a purpose. Every door that closed was protection. Every rejection was redirection. Every wound was preparation. The Prophet ﷺ showed us through every single moment of his blessed life that the path to closeness with Allah is paved not with ease and comfort, but with patience, sincerity, and unshakable trust in the one who created you. He showed us that true greatness is not in how much power you accumulate, but in how much mercy you distribute. He showed us that the measure of a human being is not their wealth or their status, but the depth of their character when they are tested. If his story teaches you nothing else, let it teach you this. Trust Allah through the loss, through the pain, through the rejection, through the exile, through the storm. Because on the other side of every test that Allah places before you, there is a mercy so beautiful, so complete, so overwhelming, that you will one day look back at your darkest moments and say, Alhamdulillah, all praise is for Allah. He knew what I did not know. May Allah habzik you, Allah then fill your hearts with love for His Prophet. May He make us among those who follow His example, honor His character, and meet Him at the fountain of Al-Kawthar on the day of judgment. May every struggle you face lead you closer to Allah. May every pain you experience open a door of mercy you never expected. And may the story of the greatest human being to ever walk this earth inspire you every single day to be better, to be kinder, to be stronger, to be more forgiving, and to trust your Lord completely.